It's the Daylight Midnight Show.
Hello and welcome to the Daylight Midnight Show. My name is Greg and I've had a very strange week this week. It's been one of those weeks where little things kept going wrong, so I thought I'd tell you all about them. Before I do that, let me just confirm that I am wearing a wetsuit as designated by last week's Outfit Roulette. I'm going to try not to do free advertising for the logo on the front. But I'll show you that I'm wearing a wetsuit, and if I stand up you should see that it's a nice full body one, so my legs are incredibly warm. These things are great in the sea, but when you're wearing them dry in a house and it's quite warm, not so comfortable. So anyway, welcome to the show. This week then, for a start, I was going to do a bonus show this week. I've been feeling bad about the fact that I've missed a couple of weeks, and I wanted to put in an extra show this week. So last weekend, after filming and uploading last week's show, I was away doing a bit of work and I had a bit of spare time, so I got my laptop out and I wrote loads of stuff that I thought I could talk about in this bonus show that I would record earlier this week. Got home the next day, had a sleep, fired up the laptop, and I'd lost everything that I'd written the night before. Now this happened for three reasons. Number one is I'm not very good with technology. Number two is the gods of technology hate me and they will take any opportunity to trip me up and make me fall flat on my face. And number three is I've got an old laptop that isn't very powerful and little things keep going wrong with it, and I know this but I still keep trusting it, so I ended up losing everything. Now what I could have done is just sat down for an hour and write it all again. I could remember most of it, but no, when you're like me it's much easier to sulk for a couple of days and not do anything and say stuff the show, I'm not going to do it. So we haven't had the bonus show. I've had to rewrite everything for this one, and then I remembered that I was supposed to be wearing a wetsuit, and the next thing that happened was I had to spend 2 days trying to find it because I couldn't find it. Normally at the end of the summer I will put the wetsuit away with all our summer gear like swimming stuff and surfboards. That goes in the attic, and then the winter stuff comes down, so like scarves, hats, nice thick coats. And I got the summer box down and the wetsuit wasn't in it. Now I thought this is karma coming back to bite me, because I will confess to you now that this wetsuit I'm wearing, I didn't pay the full price for it. I wasn't deceptive, there wasn't stealing involved, I'll quickly tell you the story, but it has been playing on my mind, so I think I need to share it with you and get it out of my head. I went to buy a wetsuit because I love swimming in the sea, but it gets very cold. So normally it's sort of June to September I can swim in the sea, and I thought if I've got a wetsuit, even if it's just a normal wetsuit, I can extend that sort of May to October. So I went and bought one, and the one I bought was what's called, I think, a 3/4 wetsuit. So unlike this one, it stops above the arms and it stops above the knees. And when I got it home, this is pre-COVID days, but they wouldn't let you try it on. They were very health conscious and they thought it's tight, it's on your skin, it's sweaty, we don't want people trying them on in the shop. So I took it home and I tried it on, and it was just too small for me. If I did the zip right up to the top, it was nipping things that you don't want nipped, that are already struggling if you're in a cold sea and you don't want to be cut off the blood supply. And if I pulled it down a bit, it was away from my neck, so it wasn't going to work. So I went back to the shop, and they were very kind, they let me change it, and the guy said, look, just try one of the ones on, you know roughly the size you want, so try one of those ones on and we'll know that it's correct and you won't have to come back again. So this time I went for the full body one, and I tried it on and it was perfect. When I took it to the till and he rang it up, he said, with the refund from what you've paid for the other one, we actually have to give you some money back because this one is cheaper. And I said, look, I think you've made a mistake, because they're clearly marked up on the wall that this one is more expensive than the 3/4 one, which was also on offer. So if anything, I should be giving you quite a bit more money. And he was very good. He said, no, look, the computer is king, that's what we're told, I'm ringing it up, I've checked it, it clearly says that that one is cheaper than the one you've already bought, so we'll give you a refund. So even though it wasn't my fault and he didn't make me feel guilty, I always had that little bit in the back of my mind. So when I couldn't find the wetsuit this week, I thought, this is the universe paying me back. And then I went and checked in the attic, and I just put it in a different box because I'm really badly organised, so it was in with a tennis set and some other toys. So we got there in the end, and I am now wearing the full wetsuit. Now all that waffle isn't going to lead to anything, but it has filled in the gap nicely from the stuff that I had written that I lost on the laptop that I told you about. So it's killed a bit of time. So let's get on with this week's show by revealing our wonderful word of the week. And this week, I think it is my favourite word that I've discovered this year, possibly of the last several years. That is the word dunduckety. This dates back from about 1800. It was used in Ireland for Irish people who were speaking English. It was very popular across East Anglia, like where I am. And it was used to describe a certain colour of brown. So if you were describing something and effectively it was the same as mud, you would say it was dunduckety, which I think is lovely. That is our wonderful word of the week. From that, we'll swing round to the Door of Delights, and I have something new that I want to put on the Door of Delights. I've done myself a little list here I realised this week that over the course of the 1.5 series we've had, there are many times when I've come up with an idea and said, we'll do this on a future show, and then we've never done it. You can probably remember more than me because my memory's terrible and I don't like looking back at these things because I hate seeing myself on camera. But these are the ones I've remembered, so I've written them down and I'll stick it up on the door of the lights because I do like crossing things off a list. So it'll be a reminder for me that I still have to do these, and then as we do them in future shows, if we get around to it, I can cross them off. So things I promised that we still need to do: I want to launch the National Anti-Ironing League. I need to officially start the Bad Back Club, which I've mentioned before, but I said we'd have come up with a song and we'd have a logo and we'd have membership cards. Need to do that. Perfect pie toppings still hasn't been done. I was going to do this in panto season, trying to find out what is the perfect topping for a custard pie that you're going to hit someone in the face with. And I also promised a show done entirely in rhyme, which I still am determined to do. I'm not sure where I can put it so you'll see it. What I might do is trim down the Brighton and Hove Albion logo and move it. But for this week, if I take off this week's topical limerick, then my little crib sheet can sit just there. My undone list of undone things can be there as a reminder. So this week's topical limerick then. The story is this: there's an experiment, an unusual experiment being done in France at the moment, and it's called Deep Time. There's a team of 15 people, there's 7 men, there's 7 women. They are ranging in age from 27 up to 50, and they're being led by an explorer who's leading the expedition, and they're living underground in an adapted cave for 40 days. They're going to have no contact with the outside world and no concept of time, and they're going to see how this affects them. They're being led by an explorer that I have to name because his name is Christian Clot. I think we've all met a few Christian Clots in our time, but he's part Swiss, part French. He's leading it. Everybody is fitted with sensors so that medics can keep an eye on them, but apart from that, they are completely cut off. So this is a really unique thing. They've done experiments like this before where people have lived completely deprived of daylight, but they've been given sort of certain tasks, or they've been given clocks, so they've always known roughly what day it was. With this, they're going to have 40 days completely out of it. They're going to see how it affects them emotionally, psychologically, whether they can continue doing cognitive functions. So they're going to have little tests and experiments they've got to carry out. And they're just going to see whether they can keep up with what the time is outside and how your body is affected by being completely abandoned by the rest of society. A few more facts then. It'll be a constant temperature of 12 degrees Celsius, so they won't know when it's day or night. 4 tons of provisions have been provided for them, so they won't want for food. They can get fresh water from a specially made well. This is my favourite bit. There's a bike-powered generator providing electricity for lights, so they can all take turns providing the electricity. The volunteers, they're all French. They include a jeweller, an anaesthetist, a security guard and a steeplejack, so all frames of life. And any of them can leave at any time if they want to. So if they start feeling a little bit out of it, they can say, I've had enough, and they'll be met at the door and they can leave. And the cave is split into 3 areas. There's an area for sleeping, an area for general living, and then there's an area where they've got to do various tests and tasks so they can see how their cognitive functions are affected. And this started a couple of weeks ago. I think they come out at the end of April, so a little limerick about that. In France, 15 people, quite brave, have agreed to spend weeks in a cave. As they'll see no daylight, they can act like it's night and just make it a 40-day rave. Party on, my French friends. C+, I'll give that one. So from that, we go round to the brown folder, which of course now has its own theme song. Dundalkety is something that is puddle muddy brown. Let's see what is in the folder that's Dundalkety brown. That's a work in progress, please don't judge me too harshly. So the brown folder, where I write little things down during the week, and it just gives us something to talk about when we come to do the show. Episode 11 then, quite a few notes this week. Number 1, I've written injury irony. Yeah, something I want to do a definitive list on. I've got a big scar on my thumb from about 10 years ago, and I got that scar on my thumb by trying to come up with a design of a safety guard that I could put on a really sharp knife, and in measuring it, I managed to cut my thumb open. Very ironic, and I thought there must be more of these. But there's also, I did have another one actually. When I was at college, on my way back from a college party, I cut my head open on a first aid box. So injury irony is something that follows me around. And when I cut my thumb, it was when I found out I had to go to hospital and have it cleaned properly. And that was when I realised that if you pull your thumb open, it looks exactly the same as the inside of a grapefruit that's been pulled open. Point number 2 this week, check the timer. I went over time last week, but it wasn't deliberate. I did set the alarm, but I'd stupidly left my laptop on mute. This is the laptop I was telling you about that I have a bit of problems with. So I went over time, so I've taken some time off this week to allow for that. That's sort of in the rules that if I go over time, I lose time the next week. So I wanted to check the timer is running, and it is by the look of it. So wait for the alarm to go off on that. Something else I've written here. Pelvis and penis are very close together, both anatomically and in a dictionary. And point number 4, I've come up with a good name for a cooking show about stir fries. It should be called Wok Jockeys. Keep an eye out for that, probably on Channel 5. So quite a few things this week, none worth exploring in more depth, I wouldn't have thought. I am incredibly uncomfortable now, wearing a wetsuit when it's dry and a dressing gown over the top and you're getting really hot and sweaty. This is really uncomfortable. So let's get on with outfit roulette, and hopefully it won't be the dressing gown this week because I seem to have been wearing that for about the last 4 weeks. So we toss it in the air and then we close our eyes and rotate it a bit so you can see it, so it's totally random. We have red to start with, so next week I will be wearing nothing over the top. Thank goodness there won't be a dressing gown. Under that we will have black, so in the black column I will be wearing a dress. Fantastic. And to accessorise all that, from column 3 we will have whatever is next to blue, and blue is glasses. So next week, nothing over the top, wearing a dress, and I will be wearing glasses. I need to go and have a cold shower now to cool down from all this. So a rhyming couplet to end the show on then. In France there's an experiment that they have called deep time. I haven't forgotten that I promised once that I'd do this show in rhyme. I'll see you next week. Have a great 7 days.